Pedro Castillo was sworn in as the President of the Republic of Peru as the country celebrates 200 years of independence. The governments of Armenia and Azerbaijan agreed to a ceasefire after 3 soldiers were killed and others injured in clashes near their shared border. South Africa has slammed the unilateral decision of the African Union Commission to grant Israel observer status to the bloc. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. Peruvian President-elect Pedro Castillo was sworn into office this Wednesday before Congress, as the country also celebrated the 200th anniversary of its independence. Castillo officially took office as president for the 2021 to 2026 term, along with his vice president Dina Boluarte. The inauguration of the new Peruvian president was attended by several presidents from across the region, including Alberto Fernandez of Argentina and Luis Arce of Bolivia. In his inaugural address to the Peruvian Congress, the new president vowed to work to improve the living standards of Peruvians through measures such as proper taxing to allow for greater spending on public services and wealth redistribution, as well as to tackle climate change and to ensure the country's development at all levels. As part of the celebrations of Peru's Independence Day, a series of activities were scheduled throughout the day, including a parade and several protocol events. During his inaugural speech before the Congress, Peru's new president, Pedro Castillo, offered a recount of the history leading to the state of the country today and vowed that his government would rule with and for the Peruvian people.
With the Constitution of the 79, all the adults could exercise our right to vote. The popular organization advanced the access to the rights processes that was caught by the coup d'etat of 1992. Who created the basis to a lack of rights, to a weakening of the state and for the rules that we see today. Since then, our country has grown and has had several governments that access to the government thanks to the popular vote. That, however, have not complied with the Constitution. This time, a government of the people is here to rule with the people and for the people.
Pedro Castillo also highlighted that he does not come from the usual political elite of the country.
To build from the bottom, from the ground, it is the first time our country will be governed by a farmer, a person that belongs, as many of the Peruvians, to the oppressed sectors for so many centuries. It is also the first time a political party created inside the country wins the elections democratically.
And President Castillo stressed that one of his first missions will be to ensure the vaccination of the Peruvian population and the guarantee of universal health care.
Maximize our effort to achieve the vaccination of all our population as soon as possible. Health in our government will be a fundamental right that the state should guarantee. The physical and mental health should be the first priority of the government. We will have a universal system care, decentralized. We will prioritize primary medical attention to strengthen prevention.
And supporters of Pedro Castillo gathered near the Peruvian Congress this Wednesday as he was sworn in as president, promising an end to corruption and a new constitution.
It is the beginning of a democratic history, where the people for the first time are going to help shape this government.
We are asking the new president today to keep his word to propose a new constitution, and the people will come out in support of that just proposal.
Philip Joseph Pierre was sworn in this Wednesday as Prime Minister of St. Lucia after his St. Lucia Labour Party secured a landslide victory in Monday's general election. The opposition St. Lucia Labour Party won 13 of the 17 seats in the lower house, while the ruling United Workers' Party lost 9 of its 11 seats, meaning an end to the government led by Alan Chastanet, which had served a single 5-year term in office. Pierre has previously served served as Minister for Tourism, Civil Aviation and International Financial Services, among other government posts. On being sworn in, he outlined a plan to stabilise the economy, implement universal healthcare and improve social transformation as the Caribbean nation works to recover from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
As Prime Minister, I promise to be Prime Minister not for some of the people, but for all the people. The St. Lucia Labour Party has won the general election. However, we now have to manage an inclusive, equitable, and just society. I believe that our island can be one where dignity of the human person is preserved and respected.
And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The governments of Armenia and Azerbaijan agreed to a ceasefire after clashes near their shared border. The truce was negotiated by Russia, an active mediator in the recent Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. According to reports, gunfire was exchanged between the troops of Baku and Yerevan in the evening hours, leaving 3 Armenian soldiers dead and several wounded on both sides. Armenian authorities pointed out that they are upholding their side of the agreement, and Azerbaijan reiterated its support for Moscow's initiative for peace. As the Taliban is set to play a major role in Afghanistan following 20 years of foreign intervention, China has called on the organisation to work towards peace and reconciliation, while underscoring support for the country's sovereignty and self-determination.
On July 28, State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi met with the visiting delegation led by head of the Afghan Taliban Political Committee, Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, in Tianjin. The heads of the Afghan Taliban's Religious Council and Publicity Committee were also on the delegation. State Councillor Wang Yi said that China, as Afghanistan's largest neighbor, has always respected Afghanistan's sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity, adhered to non-interference in Afghanistan's internal affairs and pursued a friendly policy toward the entire Afghan people. Wang Yi pointed out that the Afghan Taliban is an important military and political force in Afghanistan and is expected to play an important role in the country's peace, reconciliation and reconstruction process. We hope that the Afghan Taliban will put the interests of the country and nation first, hold high the banner of peace talks, set the goal of peace, build a positive image and pursue an inclusive policy. All factions and ethnic groups in Afghanistan should unite as one, truly implement the Afghan-led and Afghan-owned principle, push for early substantive results in the peace and reconciliation process.
Scientists have concluded that natural disasters have increased drastically since 2019 due to increased carbon emissions resulting in the greenhouse effect. Scientists from the Massachusetts Climate Research Center stated that the extreme weather events and patterns witnessed in recent years, not to mention the last few weeks, highlight the need for immediate action to address the climate crisis. Experts from the University of Oregon and Virginia agreed that the effects of climate change are all too evident. Among the warning signs, they cited that 2020 was the second hottest year on record. Wildfires are spreading through Russia's Siberian forests as the region sees a heat wave. The blazes have swept across almost 4 million acres of the Sakha Republic in the east of Russia. Smoke has affected residents in urban areas, while communities in rural outposts have seen the destruction of homes and livestock. The government has deployed the military to speed up evacuation procedures and contain the wildfires in a region known for its high temperatures and dry weather during the summer. At least 8,000 people have been hospitalized in Japan in recent weeks as a strong heat wave hit the region. With temperatures soaring above 30 degrees, hospitalizations between July 19th and 25th doubled compared to the previous week. While dozens of patients were in a fatal condition, the majority recovered from the effects of the intense heat. The government has adopted preventive measures and expanded treatment to protect the population from the extreme weather, as well as the athletes, officials and volunteers at the Olympic Games. The United States homeless population continues to grow. Activists are fighting to tax luxury properties. Our correspondent in Chicago, Brian Meir, reports.
Chicago is the world's 5th wealthiest city in GDP terms, but it also has one of the largest homeless populations in the Western Hemisphere. As capitalist real estate speculation has driven the median home price over $350,000, more and more Chicagoans are stuck living on the streets.
I think people are living on the streets because they're selling all the buildings. They're trying to put in luxury housing where we don't need it. We need affordable housing so people don't end up on the street. I don't need resources, I got all that. I got my insurance, I got a disability, so I get a check. I'm waiting for housing.
After years of pressure from grassroots activists, a bill was just introduced to the City Council to levy a small tax increase on luxury properties sold in the city for over $1 million, with around half of the new revenue earmarked for low-income housing. Activists estimate it will generate $79 million a year to address homelessness.
The Bring Chicago Home resolution is so important to the city of Chicago because it's a dedicated revenue stream to help those who are homeless. It'll help with the big crisis of homelessness that was shed light on throughout the pandemic, whereby over 77,000 people were homeless and even more became homeless because of COVID.
Meanwhile, the number of people living on the streets of Chicago continues to grow. Brian Meir, teleSUR, Chicago.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. South Africa has slammed the unilateral decision of the African Union Commission to grant Israel observer status to the bloc. In a statement published on Wednesday, the South African government said it was appalled by the decision, noting the unjust and unwarranted move was taken unilaterally without consultations with African Union member states. Israel obtained AU observer status on Friday after 20 years of diplomatic efforts. South Africa stressed that the decision is even more shocking in a year in which the oppressed people of Palestine were hounded by destructive bombardments and continued illegal settlements on their land. The number of deaths in Nigeria due to a cholera outbreak rose to 479, according to authorities of the West African nation. The cholera epidemic has spread through 18 states since January 2021, including the capital of the country, Abuja. According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, since the beginning of this year, over 19,000 suspected cases have been recorded. The outbreak is aggravated by the lack of drinking water and shortage of resources, which impede a fast and effective medical response, thus increasing the risk of infection and death. A Palestinian man was shot dead by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank late on Tuesday. In a statement, the Palestinian Health Ministry said 41-year-old Shadi Salim was shot with live bullets by Israeli occupation soldiers near the village of Beita. The deputy mayor of the village stressed that Salim, a plumber, was on his way home from work. He noted that he was killed in cold blood, adding that there had been no protests in the area on Tuesday night. The village has seen protests against an Israeli outpost and the planned expansion of illegal Jewish settlements on the Palestinian land, which have been violently repressed by the Zionist forces. Tanzania's new president, Samia Suluhu, launched a coronavirus vaccination drive this Wednesday. The decision came as Tanzania became one of the last countries in the world to start inoculating its people, reversing the policies of its previous leader. Authorities in the East African nation had until recently resisted imposing measures such as mask-wearing, curfews and lockdowns. Former President John Magufuli was one of the world leaders who dismissed the seriousness of the pandemic. Priority for vaccination will be given to special groups of frontline workers, the elderly and those with underlying diseases. Senegal is now facing an explosion of COVID-19 cases due to the spread of the Delta variant. In the capital, Dakar, hospitals are at maximum capacity. The Health Ministry underlined the imminent health system collapse on Monday, noting hospitals were full and medical personnel overworked. The West African country has suffered a third wave of virus infections in recent weeks, with cases rising from a few dozen a day late last month to an average of 1,700 in July. There are fears that last week's Islamic festival of Eid al-Adha, which saw many people travel to gather with family, will increase the caseload.
Our reception capacities are currently at their maximum. Now the ball is in the court of the authorities and the population. Barrier measures and vaccination must be carried out, and the authorities must also decide on the strategy to be adopted in the face of this pandemic. We are in the process of thinking about readjusting and trying to respond to the high demand that exists. This is why we are finalizing another site where we have the possibility of extension to have 11 beds that could be put back into the system with oxygen.
A state of medical emergency has been declared in the cities of Saint-Martin and Saint-Barthélemy in France, as local hospitals find themselves under severe stress due to a surge in COVID-19 cases.
We have also decided this morning to declare by decree a state of health emergency in 3 new territories. In Guadeloupe, where the White Plan has been triggered and where only 15% of the population is fully vaccinated, but also in Saint-Martin and Saint-Barthélemy, where the incidence rate has reached 1,714 cases per 100,000 inhabitants. This decision, which will come into effect at midnight tonight, will allow all necessary measures to be taken to protect local hospitals, which could quickly find themselves under great pressure.
And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. Plus you can catch up on our shows on our YouTube channel. For teleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.